Okay, let's dive into this explainer. Picture this. You're driving home after a long day. The sun's gone down, the road is relatively quiet, and then suddenly, cresting the hill right in front of you, is a pair of headlights so intensely bright that they completely wash out your vision. For a terrifying couple of seconds, you are essentially flying blind. If you've been feeling like driving at night has become an increasingly glaring, uncomfortable experience over the last few years, well, you are absolutely not alone. Today, we're going to break down the science, the data, and the regulations behind our new nighttime driving reality, blinding headlights.
Let's start with a really simple question. Do you have to look away from oncoming traffic at night? Think about your own late-night driving habits for a second. Are you finding yourself actively looking down, squinting, or just fixing your gaze entirely on that solid white line on the right side of the road, just to avoid being blinded by the oncoming lane? It's basically become a mandatory defensive driving tactic for millions of us. We're contorting our posture and actively looking away from the road ahead, simply because the light coming toward us is physically painful to look at.
And hey, if you thought you were just getting overly sensitive, let this number validate your frustration. 380,000. That's the staggering number of Canadians who recently responded to a Transport Canada public consultation survey all about vehicle headlight glare. To put that massive response into perspective, that's roughly the entire population of Oshawa and Burlington, Ontario, combined. 380,000 people took time out of their day to tell the government, loud and clear, that they are struggling to see safely on the roads at night because of this oncoming glare. That's what you call a wildly high volume of responses.
And this brilliantly illustrates that this isn't just a regional issue, it's a widespread North American phenomenon. A recent study by the American Automobile Association, or AAA, released in March, shows a really clear divide. 6 in 10 drivers report that glare is a major problem after dark. Furthermore, nearly 3/4 of those affected believe the issue has gotten significantly worse over the past decade. The data clearly shows we aren't just imagining things. The roads have objectively changed.
But here's a fascinating twist. What you drive drastically impacts how you experience this problem. When researchers broke down the complaints by vehicle type, they found that only 41% of pickup truck drivers reported glare as a major issue. Compare that to 66% of drivers in other standard vehicle types. You see, if you're sitting way up high in a pickup truck, you're largely above the fray. But if you're commuting in a standard sedan, a hatchback, or any lower riding vehicle, those oncoming headlights are quite literally blasting at your exact eye level.
Section 1. Why are they so bright?
To understand where we are, we kind of have to look at how we got here. According to Kartik Murari, a professor of electrical and biomedical engineering at the University of Calgary, we've seen an incredibly rapid technological shift. 20 years ago, we were primarily relying on tungsten or incandescent lamps. These were relatively warm, dim, and yellow. Then, in the recent past, we moved to halogen lamps, which were definitely brighter and more efficient. And today? The current standard is the LED, or light-emitting diode. These are incredibly energy efficient, sure, but they fundamentally change how light is delivered to our eyes.
So the crucial point is understanding color spectrum and temperature. All these headlights produce what we generally call white light, but white light is actually made up of specific amounts of red, blue, and green light mixed together. Older incandescent bulbs leaned really heavily into the red and yellow parts of the spectrum, which created a warm, soft glow. Modern LEDs, on the other hand, lean heavily into the blue part of the spectrum. This creates a very cool, harsh, diamond white light. Even if the actual measured brightness, the lumens, were exactly the same, the human eye perceives this blue-heavy spectrum as significantly brighter and so much harsher.
But color temperature is really just one piece of the puzzle. We are actually facing a perfect storm of structural culprits multiplying this blinding effect. First, LEDs have a much smaller surface area than old bulbs. The light is intensely concentrated into a tiny pinpoint, kind of like a laser, rather than diffused over a large reflective bowl. Second, as we mentioned earlier, the booming popularity of tall SUVs and trucks means these concentrated laser beams are mounted much higher up. Third, think about Canadian weather. Rain-slicked, wet roads act exactly like a dark mirror, bouncing that high-lumen LED light right back up into your windshield. And finally, biology. As we age, our eyes naturally become much more vulnerable to high-contrast glare and take a lot longer to recover from that blinding flash.
Section 2. Creating glare monsters.
Vehicle lighting expert Daniel Stern captures this perfectly. He says, put LED bulbs in a halogen headlamp, you turn it into a glare monster. You're not getting the right amounts of light to the right places to see safely. This is a massive issue. People go online, they buy cheap, intensely bright aftermarket LED replacement bulbs, and they stick them right into older cars that were designed for halogen bulbs. The problem is, the optical housings aren't designed for LEDs. Instead of focusing the beam neatly down on the road where it belongs, the housing scatters that intense blue light uncontrollably in every direction, including directly into the retinas of oncoming traffic. And all of this stems from a really common, very dangerous misconception that brighter light automatically equals better visibility. Mechanics in Edmonton have noted that customers constantly come in complaining that they can't see at night, and they ask for the absolute brightest LED bulbs money can buy. But often, their original bulbs are perfectly fine. The real issue is simply clouded, oxidized, or dirty plastic headlight lenses on the front of their vehicle. By slapping illegal ultra-bright LEDs behind a foggy lens, they don't actually fix their own visibility problem. They just create a massive glare bomb for everyone else on the road.
Section 3. The dangers on the road.
The intense contrast between the pitch-black night and these ultra-bright LEDs leads to severe visual discomfort. But honestly, worse than that are the blinding afterimages. You know that spot you see after someone takes a flash photo of you? Imagine having that while doing 100 kilometers an hour down a 2-lane highway. This temporary loss of vision means you are driving completely blind for several seconds. If a deer jumps out or a pedestrian is crossing the road, you simply will not see them. Vulnerable road users, like seniors and pedestrians walking at night, are put in an extreme, life-threatening risk because oncoming drivers physically cannot see past that wall of glare.
And then, of course, there is the misuse of auxiliary lighting, like high-vis light bars. These things have plummeted in price over the last decade. Now let's be clear, they absolutely have a purpose. A professional trucker driving through rural Canada might use one wisely to illuminate a dark roadside ditch, safely spotting a moose before it wanders onto the highway. That effectively saves lives. But that is completely different from the everyday driver, the annoying brodozers as they're sometimes called, leaving their off-road light bars turned on while navigating a basic suburban commute, indiscriminately blinding absolutely everyone in a 2-mile radius.
Section 4. The path forward. Consider this number, 11,245. That is the number of people who have signed a recent petition opened by Bloc Québécois MP Javier Barcelou-Duval. This petition neutrally urges the federal government to modernize its vehicle headlight regulations. It specifically calls for new rules that actually consider human perception of brightness and asks to strictly regulate the color spectrum and dispersion of these LED beams to protect road users, especially seniors.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how these blinding lights are even legal in the first place. Lighting expert Daniel Stern points out that we are suffering from a massive regulatory lag. The legal standards dictate how much electrical power a light can use, sure, but they completely fail to incorporate human biology, how we actually perceive color temperature and the blue spectrum. So a manufacturer can build a headlight that mathematically checks all the legal boxes on paper, but out in the real world it acts as a debilitating glare monster. The regulations simply haven't caught up to the LED revolution.
But fortunately, technological solutions already exist. If we compare our outdated North American regulations to European standards, well, it's night and day. North America still largely treats a headlight like a simple flashlight. It's either on or off, high beam or low beam. But in Europe, regulators allow for advanced technology like smart micro-LED systems. Vehicles like the new Audi Q7 use matrices of up to 25,600 micro-LEDs. By using built-in cameras, the car actually detects oncoming traffic and actively turns off the specific pixels of light that would hit the oncoming driver's eyes, while keeping the rest of the road brightly illuminated. It's properly engineered beam shaping that actually stops us from blinding each other.
So, the technology to fix this absolutely exists, but the rules dictate what we get to drive. Which leaves us with this final thought summarizing our explainer today. Will our safety regulations catch up with modern technology before we are left entirely in the dark? We have the data, we know the biology, and we have the incredible engineering solutions just waiting across the ocean. It's now up to regulators to decide if they will flip the switch and finally bring an end to this dangerous, blinding era of nighttime driving. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. I hope it illuminated the issue for you, and please drive safe out there.